I had never imagined that a simple conversation with my neighbor could lead to something so unexpected. He was an African man who had recently moved into the building, and there was something about him that immediately caught my attention. His presence was magnetic, a mix of confidence and mystery that made it impossible to look away. I often found myself stealing glances when he passed by, noticing the way he carried himself, the subtle smile he gave, and the way his eyes seemed to linger just a little longer than usual. Point one evening, while I was coming back from work, he greeted me with his usual calm demeanor. "Hey, do you want to come with me tonight? There's a hotel nearby, and I thought we could spend some time together," he said casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. My heart skipped a beat. I wasn't sure if I should say yes or run in the opposite direction. Part of me was curious, intrigued by the boldness of his invitation, while another part of me warned about the consequences of giving in to temptation. I spent the rest of the day thinking about it. My mind kept drifting to him, imagining what it would feel like to be close to him, to share a night that was entirely his and mine. The idea of being with someone so different, someone exciting and unknown, both thrilled and terrified me. I wondered what it would mean for me, for my life, and for the rules I had always followed. But the more I tried to resist, the more I found myself drawn toward the thought of saying, "Yes, nightfall." I had made my decision. I picked up my phone and told him I would meet him at the hotel. As I walked there, my heart pounded in my chest. Every step felt heavier with anticipation, and every passing car, every streetlight seemed to heighten my nerves. When I finally reached the hotel, I paused at the entrance, taking a deep breath to steady myself. He was already waiting, leaning casually against the wall, his smile calm and inviting that we went inside together. The lobby was quiet, softly lit, with the hum of air conditioning and distant sounds of the city outside. I followed him, trying to match his relaxed pace, but inside I was a whirlwind of emotions. Curiosity, desire, and a hint of guilt battled for attention in my mind. The elevator ride felt endless, each floor bringing me closer to a decision I couldn't undo. When the doors opened to his room, he stepped in first, gesturing for me to follow. The room was warm, dimly lit, with a subtle scent that made me dizzy. For a moment, we just stood there, looking at each other. No words were needed. The tension in the air was almost tangible, a silent agreement of what the night could become. I felt a strange mix of fear and excitement, unsure of what would happen next, but unable to step back. His eyes met mine, and I saw that same curiosity reflected there, the same longing and anticipation. And then, slowly, as if sensing my hesitation, he reached out his hand. I took it, my fingers trembling slightly as they touched his. That simple gesture broke the final barrier between us. In that moment, I realized I had crossed into something new, something thrilling, and something that could never be undone. My heart raced, and I knew that the night ahead would change everything. The room was quiet, but the air between us seemed to hum with electricity. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, each thump echoing the tension that had been building since the moment I agreed to come. He smiled softly, a look that was both comforting and provocative, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. It was as if he could see every thought I had, every hesitation, and every secret desire I tried to hide. He moved closer, and I felt the warmth of his presence envelop me. The closeness was intoxicating, a mix of fear and excitement that I had never experienced before. Our hands brushed lightly at first, a subtle test, and then he took mine fully, holding it gently yet firmly. That simple touch sent a thrill through me, a silent promise of the night ahead. Words were unnecessary. Our eyes spoke everything we needed to say. As we stood there, I couldn't help but notice the small details. The curve of his smile, the way his eyes glimmered in the dim light, the smoothness of his skin. My mind was racing, trying to process all the emotions I was feeling. Part of me was dizzy with desire, wanting to reach out and close the distance between us, while another part of me was acutely aware of the moral line I was crossing. The tension was almost unbearable, but it only made the anticipation stronger. Slowly, He leaned in, and our foreheads touched. There was an intimacy in that simple gesture that made my breath catch. I could feel the heat of his body, the strength in his hands, and the sincerity in his gaze. Every nerve in my body seemed alive, and I realized that this night wasn't just about desire. It was about connection, curiosity, and exploring something forbidden yet compelling that we moved closer, each gesture natural and unforced. There was a rhythm to it, an unspoken understanding that neither of us needed to rush, yet neither could resist the pull. I felt a mix of guilt and exhilaration, emotions that clashed violently, but somehow felt right in that moment. I had never felt this way with anyone before. The intensity of his presence made me feel alive in a way that terrified and thrilled me simultaneously. He whispered something softly, a word that sent a shiver down my spine, and I realized how easily he had gotten under my skin. His confidence, his calm demeanor, and the subtle way he read my reactions made the night feel like an intimate dance, one where every move mattered, every glance had meaning. I let myself get lost in that rhythm, letting my instincts guide me, trusting the connection between us more than any thoughts in my head. Time seemed to stretch and bend as the night unfolded. Moments of silence were punctuated by quiet laughter and soft exchanges, and I discovered a vulnerability in him that made me want to reach closer, to understand him more deeply. There was a magnetic pull between us, a combination of curiosity, desire, and the thrill of secrecy, and I found myself giving in completely, letting go of all restraint as the hours passed. I became aware of how entangled our emotions had become. What started as curiosity and temptation had grown into something more complex, an emotional intimacy that I hadn't anticipated. And even though a small part of me knew the consequences of this night could be significant, I couldn't stop myself from wanting more, from being drawn deeper into this forbidden connection. By the time the night reached its quietest hours, I realized that something fundamental had shifted. I wasn't just physically close to him. I was emotionally invested in a way that startled me. The thrill of the forbidden had become a potent force, one that left me breathless and craving, unsure of what the morning would bring, but unable to deny the intensity of what we had shared. The first light of morning seeped through the curtains, soft and pale, painting the room in gentle shades of gold. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts tangled in the events of the night. The heat and intensity of our connection still lingered on my skin, but now it was accompanied by a quiet ache of reflection. I realized that what had felt like an escape, a thrill, was also something complicated, something that could not easily be forgotten. He stirred beside me, stretching and letting out a soft yawn, his eyes meeting mine with that same gentle intensity that had captivated me the night before. There was a brief, comfortable silence as we shared the aftermath of what had happened, a silent acknowledgement of the emotions between us. I felt a mixture of contentment and guilt, the sweetness of connection clashing with the awareness of the choices I had made. As we sat together, sipping coffee in the stillness of the morning, I found myself replaying every moment of the previous night. The way he had looked at me, the quiet laughter, the subtle touches, they all lingered in my mind, vivid and impossible to ignore. I realized that in a few hours, I would leave this room and return to the world outside, carrying with me the weight of secrecy and desire, the knowledge that my life had shifted in ways I could not undo, that I wanted to hold onto the closeness, to stay wrapped in that moment of intimacy and understanding. But reality pressed in. The outside world awaited with its rules, expectations, and responsibilities. I felt the tension of two lives colliding. The part of me that longed for freedom, excitement, and connection, and the part that knew the consequences could be profound. It was a delicate balance, and I understood that this night would leave a permanent mark on me. He smiled softly, sensing my inner turmoil, and reached out, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The gesture was tender, almost protective, and I felt a pang of longing mixed with regret. There was a depth to him, a complexity that went beyond the physical attraction, and I knew that part of me had already become invested in him in a way that went far beyond the night we had shared. As the morning stretched on, I realized that this encounter was about more than just desire. It had opened a door to feelings I had not anticipated, a world of emotional intensity that I had been curious about but never experienced so directly. I felt the bittersweet ache of knowing that what we had was fleeting, yet undeniable, a mixture of passion, connection, and the quiet understanding that comes with exploring something forbidden. Finally, it was time to leave. I dressed slowly, each movement weighted with thought, and we shared a final look, a moment of silent understanding. There were no promises, no declarations of forever, just the acknowledgement of what had happened and the unspoken question of what might come next. I stepped out of the hotel room with a mixture of clarity and confusion, my heart still racing, my mind filled with the echo of the night. Walking through the city streets, I felt both exhilarated and unsettled. The world seemed sharper, more vivid, as if I were seeing it through a lens colored by desire, curiosity, and the thrill of secrecy. I knew that this night would linger in my memory, shaping my thoughts, feelings, and choices in ways I could not yet predict. And though I could not know what the future held, I understood that something fundamental had changed within me. A recognition of the power of temptation, connection, and the intensity of human emotion that comes when two people choose to share a night that belongs only to them. As I moved forward, the memory of his touch, his smile, and the quiet intimacy we shared remained with me, a private treasure and a reminder of the night that had shifted everything. The consequences were uncertain, the emotions raw, but I knew that I had experienced something extraordinary, something that would linger, unseen by the world, yet etched permanently into the story of who I had become.